had always said 4 and no more because we have 4 kids of our own. And so thinking of adopting or seeing other people who had adopted kids, I thought we had enough of our own kids. But we were actually at a conference somewhere down south, and we had seen an adopted kid come up on the stage, and there was a reunification thing that happened there. We were just really moved by what we saw, and we were like, wow, I think it was really at that moment our hearts were open to adopting. And then what was neat was we had pretty close friends at the time that were fostering 2 boys at the time, and we were like, okay, this is what it will look like, and we began to investigate it. We began to take some classes. Obviously,
I can't think of a time where adoption has not impacted my life, because I was adopted when I was 4 days old. My parents had 6 children of their own, and in church they announced that there was a need for families to take in children. And they didn't hesitate. They thought, okay, we can do this. They did not have the money or the means or the room in the house, but I became part of a family that day on. And I now had 4 brothers and 2 sisters and a mom and dad. So I grew up with adoption just being a normal part of our family. We would go out to play outside, and the neighbors on one side of us had 2 girls who were adopted, and then we had 2 boys on the other side. They were adopted. They did. When I went to school, there was other kids that were adopted there. So adoption was my normal.
Obviously, the Lord just really stirring our hearts and saying, you know, this is something I'm calling you to do. Bringing kids into our family that come from hard places. You guys have some love that I want you to give to more than just your 4 and no more. And so I think that's how our journey started.
When I got older, I had my own children, my own biological children. I had 4 of them. And then in what was my normal, after I had my children, I started thinking about adoption. And my husband was open to that because I've always spoken about it. And so we started bringing in foster kids to our house. We have had over 40 children come to our home, and 4 of them we adopted. And that's, people are like, oh, that's so amazing, that's great, and all that. But again, for me, it's just my normal. Doesn't everybody have a bunch of kids and then adopt more? So
there is joy in the journey because kids are precious. And every time that there is a small victory or a little piece of healing or some attachment that happens, every success it's a gem, it's a diamond, because it's been hard fought for, because these kids are survivors and life has been hard. And so when there is a win, it's a beautiful win, and it's a testament to God's grace and to his healing, and the fact that he would choose to include us in their lives in this way, to be able to provide them with a safe space to land and to heal and to grow, a space where no matter what they do or what comes up, there will still be love, and there will be grace, and there will be forgiveness. I feel like it's an honor that God would invite us into that, because that's his heart. That's who he is to every one of us. And asking us to reflect his heart to others in that way, I don't think it's too great an ask. I think it's a beautiful call, even though it's a hard call. But again, we haven't been called to comfort. We haven't been called to ease. We've been called to take up our cross and to follow Jesus. And we've been called to love those who are wounded or who are overlooked, and to show them the love of Jesus. Piece of healing.
I have nothing but appreciation for the fact that my parents did that, because now as an adult and with my own bills to pay and things like that, I have a whole new understanding of what they actually did when they brought me into the home. When I got saved, I became adopted in. I was grafted into God's family. And so that's not a concept that's hard for me to understand. It's something I just get. I understand it completely. I was adopted into my family that adopted me. I was adopted into my church family.
We went into it, I think, thinking, we probably had a little bit of a hero complex. Like, we're going to do this good thing for these children. They're going to be so grateful. And the reality is, these kids have been through so much. Our children were 5 and 8, so they already had a lot of life experience that had really traumatized them. But even when children are adopted, as newborns, there is trauma. There's trauma history. I think the impact was far greater than we had anticipated. As far as I do believe that ultimately, hope wins out. Truth wins over lies. The light conquers the darkness. But it is a long, hard journey, and
it's affected us in both positive and hard ways, both personally and in the ministry that we do as pastors.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the positive things, even at home with our kids, we have more fun with all the kids, learning how to share, be more patient, all those things. It's great dynamics, just a lot of great things that happen. Of course, on the flip side, just to have now 6 in the mix as opposed to 4.
Mm-hmm.
There's some tough things.
And I think again, realizing that things that we would have wanted to happen more immediately, or maybe would have imagined, that if I do the right things, if I am trauma informed, if I have these relational skills, if this should happen more expediently.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the greatest things that the Lord has taught us is, like, this is patience. This is a journey. These are His children more than they're ours. We are not the heroes. We are not the fixers. We are simply the hands and feet of Jesus, to be consistent, to be loving, to be faithful. And then the truth is that there are definitely some ways that we've been wounded in the process.
It's impacted us in the idea that we've had to be, or have chosen to be more vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
in situations that we've been in. And I think that's been a good thing, because we've actually allowed the church to rally around us.
Mm-hmm.
We think of ourselves as being pastors, and we rally around people. We rally around people's problems. And to see our church family rally around us at different times when things have been tough for us, it's been a good thing. It's been strengthening.
I believe the church is very much called to adopt children. I don't think there should be any orphan children out there. I think it should go back to what happened when I was a baby and in need, where the head of the church stood up and said, listen, there's a need out there, and we need to meet that need, because there's children who don't have a home. The very thing that people take for granted. Had my parents not stepped up and done that, I don't know what would have happened to me. I don't know how I would have turned out. And it breaks my heart that there's kids out there now who don't have families. I think that's tragic. I think it's a loss for the church. It's a loss for the kingdom. It's a loss for these kids who it's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong. And we can help. We can bring them into our homes, and we can let them know the love of Christ. And we can show them that they do have a family they fit into, and it's a family that can never be taken away from them. It's the family of God. Adoption is very much a ministry. It's very much opening yourself up and giving everything you have to somebody who might not appreciate it. The whole message of the Bible is how much God loves children, and He said, bring them to me. And that was in a society that didn't value children. We have a society that now really abuses children. And I think it is our job as the church to bring kids in, to protect them, to be mindful of the fact that it is a ministry. You're not going to get as much as you're going to give. It's work, it's a ministry, it's pouring yourself into someone else who has been neglected or abused or abandoned or left. And yet, who's more worthy of your ministry and your time and your attention? And
I think that every Christ follower should consider it because it's biblical. It is the Father's heart, and it's yet another way that we can be salt and light, that we can be difference makers, that we can love those who are broken and see them come into a measure of wholeness through Jesus, through Jesus in us, through Jesus in our homes.
so we want to encourage people to not get abortions, and we want people to choose life. But if they can't take care of their children, then it's up to us to do it.
We're called to follow Jesus, and Jesus went into hard and messy places. He goes to the hard and messy places in me and in you. He goes to hard and messy places in rescuing children who have been through really horrific things. And if we're going to follow Jesus, we'll follow him into those places. And the good news is he doesn't lead us into those places and then he takes off. But he's there with us in those hard places, ministering his life to us so that his life can flow through us. He's faithful. So I think everyone should consider it, should pray. If you feel like, yes, this is what God's calling us to do, don't be deterred by the naysayers. Also, be as prepared as you can be.
That's good.
While knowing that you still can't be fully prepared. And but have resources in place.
Get prepared, get
supports,
educated.
Tools.
That's good. Support.
Therapists.
People around
have
you.
A therapist for yourself.
Yeah.
For your family unit, for the kids that you're bringing into care.
That's 3. You should have at least 3 or 4 therapists.
Yeah, a million.
No, but having the support around you is really what makes a huge difference. You know, you don't want to walk it alone. The Lord's going to walk with you, give you the encouragement and strength. But it's amazing that he calls us to walk with each other, and we find so much strength with each other. Right? We're called to sharpen one another, and we can encourage each other. We can pray for one another. It's so important. So, yeah, if you're considering it, go for it, and God will be with you every step of the way. I can tell you that much, even in the hard things.
Especially in the hard things.
Especially.